Apparently not.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Around the Pound. I apologize, I did not realize I was muted. I am your host for this week, James Phoenix, and we have a very special topic this week because if by some chance you're living under a rock somewhere, you might not have heard, but otherwise definitely have heard that just a short week ago or so, we lost the great Leonard Nimoy. Back on February the 27th. Of course, Leonard Nimoy very famous for playing Mr. Spock in all things Star Trek related, and among many other great roles, both on screen and on stage,
And on the small screen.
and on the small screen. And we just felt that we wanted to take this particular Around the Pound to share some of our thoughts and memories of how his various roles and properties influenced us, and kind of honor his memory in that way. Joining me for this review from the Mohole is Chriz The Mole.
And hello.
From the Shadows Maw is Marcus Shadow.
Hello.
And our special guest from the week from her own self-titled reviews is Anastasia Laserbeam. Pew pew.
Hello.
Indeed. So, yeah, I'm not really sure. I guess I'll start. Leonard Nimoy initially didn't have as much impact on me as on a lot of other people, because as anybody who has heard me talk about Star Trek and whatnot knows, I never watched, aside from a sporadic episode here or there, any of the original series known as Star Trek. And as a result, I really didn't have an experience with Mr. Spock for a long time. Years ago, I started watching a channel called TNN. It was originally the Nashville Network, became the National Network after it was picked up. I primarily started watching it because at the time that was the channel that had the rights to air Monday Night Raw on Monday nights, which was effectively the only show they had at the time that was anything, because the only other show they had the rights to at that time was Star Trek The Next Generation, which they pretty much showed almost 24 hours outside of the Monday Night Raw time block, and an occasional movie that they had. And so my first experience really with Spock, aside from having heard about him in the popular culture vernaculum, and seeing references to Leonard Nimoy here and there, was in the Star Trek two-part episode Unification, in which Spock appeared on the Romulan homeworld, pushing forth his efforts at reunification between the Romulan and Vulcan people, which, if you don't know much about Star Trek, they were derived from the same initial race, and they broke apart and went separate ways and evolved a little bit differently over the intervening time. And really, that was when you could really tell, just from not only the way they framed him, but just from the way Leonard Nimoy held himself, the reverence that the character had, and the reverence for the actor behind the character. Just the way, when Spock was on screen, he was the focus. When Spock was there, it wasn't about, Captain Picard, or it wasn't about Data, or it wasn't about, this Romulan senator who's going to stand in the back at the end of the episode. Spoilers.
It wouldn't be about Data. He's in a different series.
I'm talking about Next Gen. If you don't listen to anything I just said.
I listened to what you were saying. I was just saying it wouldn't be Data.
Why wouldn't it?
Different series.
You're an idiot. Anyway. In those scenes, Leonard Nimoy owned the scenes he was in. Just his presence, you knew that this was the guy you ought to pay attention to. Just the combination of both his presence as an actor and, his ability in that character, you could feel the reverence for that, for that logic. His interactions with Brent Spiner and commenting on how Data was what many Vulcans strive to be, that perfect, logical, emotionless being, and how, Data, kind of came back at him with, well, it's ironic because an emotionless human being is what I seek to be. That was, he played off of that so well, and just, it gave you could see the connection between both the characters and the actors, and how well Leonard Nimoy was able to portray that and work all that in. And in a couple later episodes, he appeared in as well. And in my, as you know, if you watch X-Files recent viewings of some of the earlier movies, I can still feel that same, that reverence for Spock, the way he put himself into that character, the way he became that character, and the way he was able to, you know, just shut that emotion down and be that logical being, but portray portray so many emotions, for lack of a better term, in others, and portray emotions of Spock without actually portraying emotion. It takes a talent that a lot of actors don't have, and that a lot of people could not pull off. But Leonard Nimoy was just the right guy at the right time when that role came along, and it worked wonders. And having seen Leonard Nimoy in a few other things, whether it be as we were discussing this briefly before, Master Xehanort in Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, he did a great job voice acting that character.
And Dream Drop Distance.
He's not in Dream Drop Distance.
According to IMDb, he is.
IMDb is a lying sack of crap.
Fair enough.
IMDb is right.
Although it does say that it's the 3D version, so maybe he was only in the 3DS version?
That's what.
That's only a
Dream Drop
3DS version of Dream Drop Distance.
Okay.
That's 3D.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know
it's
that. Okay, well, then yeah, according to IMDb, he was the voice of Master Xehanort in that game.
Well, then maybe he was in a flashback or two, but he didn't have a prominent role in the game, to my knowledge.
Fair enough.
Yeah, which I'll say one thing I liked about Leonard Nimoy was I liked the fact while he was ultra serious as Spock, he was more than willing to just lampoon himself and have fun. Like, I loved the Bilbo Baggins. That song was great. I loved him appearing on Futurama. Or hell, who didn't love Marge vs. the Monorail?
Yeah.
When he appears and he keeps nitpicking anyone anytime they talk about fucking Star Trek, and even has that scene where it's something along the lines of, I'd say this vessel could do warp 5. And the mayor's like, yes, and may the force be with you. And Spock's like, do you even know who the hell I am? And the mayor just goes, aren't you one of the little rascals?
I love some of the commercials he's done, like one of the more recent ones where he did a commercial with fucking, what's his name? The guy who plays Spock now.
Zachary Quinto.
Yeah, when the first Star Trek, when Abrams Trek came out, I love that car commercial they did together because Nimoy was totally taking the piss.
Yep. Which, like I said, I always love that when you can get these actors, because there's some actors who are always ultra serious characters on TV or whatever, and then when you see them outside that, they're just ultra serious and just they talk about how what I did didn't matter, or what I did was, you see, blah blah blah. I like the fact Leonard Nimoy could lampoon himself and just have fun, and you don't see that with a lot of people, which I always respect that.
Yeah, he has a lot of fun with it. You can tell. And a lot of almost all his public appearances afterwards, he's always quotes the character Spock. He does the hand thing that I can't do, and he just fucking knows what kind of fan service that people want from him, and he just gives it to him. And gives it to them. He just embraces it.
Yep, I wish I could have met the guy before he passed away, because I have one of his books. He came out with 2 books for Star Trek. He came out, I am not Spock, and I am Spock, and I have one of them, and I would have loved to have him sign it.
Nice.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I also give him credit for some of the other roles that, something like, for example, Sentinel Prime and Transformers, which generally not a good movie. But that character was generally well portrayed, even though you could tell Leonard Nimoy probably didn't want to be in that movie. You could tell that he legitimately portrayed the evil of that character, and when he explained why he was backstabbing Optimus Prime, you actually understood it. You actually kind of understood his position, even though you didn't want to agree with him. You didn't have a choice.
I thought he did a better job as Galvatron in the original Transformers animated movie.
Like I said, I didn't really see that, so I can't judge that.
And I was so disappointed they didn't get him for the series. I mean, it's understandable because, yeah, you're not going to hire Leonard fucking Nimoy for a TV series. Not at that point. But, because he was the voice of Galvatron in the movie, and then when they used Galvatron in the series, not only did the animation, turn to crap, but they turned Galvatron into a blithering idiot who was, he had lost his mind and stuff, and it wasn't Nimoy's voice, so the character just didn't seem right. That's how much Nimoy brought to the character of Galvatron in the Transformers movie because he was amazing in that movie.
See, I will admit, I didn't like him as Galvatron.
Really?
That's mainly because, for me, I always like it when Megatron, as other Transformer ones have done, when Megatron's voice is the same voice as Galvatron, but then just changes it slightly, because that makes it more like, okay, it's definitely the same character. That one just felt more like, well, we're trying to make a new character, but we couldn't come up with anything better than it's Megatron.
Fair enough.
However, he did a great job of what he was given. Like, I didn't like him as Sentinel Prime, but he did a great job as Sentinel Prime. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I have not seen any of the Transformer stuff other than the first Transformer movie, and that was enough for me, so I can't really say on that. I haven't even seen the cartoons or anything about that. I've just seen the original original Star Trek and the new movies.
Fair enough. I think the favorite thing of mine that Nimoy has done, and I didn't even realize he did this until, well, now when I was looking at his credits on IMDb, it's for something he didn't even act in. He directed it, and that's Three Men and a Baby. Who remembers that movie?
I remember that movie.
I've heard of that movie, but I haven't seen it.
3 Men and a Little Girl. I remember both of those.
Yeah, the second one sucked. The first one was awesome. I love Three Men and a Baby. That movie was amazing, and I didn't realize that was directed by Leonard Nimoy until now. I'm like, holy crap, he directed that?
Yeah.
I mean, that just shows his sense of humor, the fact that he could make something like that. Mr. Spock directed Three Men and a Baby.
Yep, which I will say, I like that film. I liked its sequel too, but that's mainly because I haven't gone back and watched them in years, so I was a lot younger when I watched both, but I did enjoy them. And you have some great actors assembled within that, which totally worked.
Yeah. Yeah, I just remember Three Men and a Baby being hilarious. But yeah, Leonard Nimoy is just he was good at whatever he did, and he dedicated himself to whatever he did, and you could tell just by, like, as Jim pointed out, how he carried himself and how he portrayed characters he portrayed, or, you know, when he directed movies, you could tell he put his all into it, regardless if, as Jim pointed out, regardless if he wanted to be there or not, he put his all into it because that's who he was.
Very professional actor, fun-loving guy outside the set. Always gave his all.
Absolutely.
Yep. Which that's always good when you see him having, like I mentioned, have the fun aspect. I always like that. Like I said, I still do love that Bilbo Baggins song. I just think that song's just, I don't know why, you listen to it and it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. It is awesome.
Yep. I think
I also
like. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I also like the fact he stepped back into the role of Spock in the Abrams track, and he felt like Spock.
Yep.
Because too many times actors take a dramatic gap between them, step back into one of their iconic roles, and they don't quite feel the same. A big example would be Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the movie Wall Street, oh my God, he was phenomenal. When you see Wall Street 2, when you see Wall Street 2 and he has a cameo, he appears and he acts exactly like Charlie Sheen from 2.5 Men. It's like, that's a completely different character. You're portraying this wrong.
Yeah. It's like Johnny Depp in 21 Jump Street, because Johnny Depp is such a good actor. He could pretty much portray any role you give him. But he had a cameo in the 21 Jump Street movie. Yes, his old character from the TV show, and it felt like that character. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
The problem is Johnny Depp can portray any character you give him, but he's going to turn it into a quirky Johnny Depp character.
This one kind of wasn't. This one was deadly serious. Like you could buy that it was his character from 21 Jump Street grown up now and like fucking FBI and shit.
Yeah, Johnny Depp is a great actor. I loved him in. Probably my favorite Johnny Depp film would probably be that Through the Window, or whatever it was called, based on the Stephen King thing about the person who's right. Yeah, the Secret Window, based on the Stephen King book. It's, oh my God, it's phenomenal. And he's not like Jack Sparrow or the Mad Hatter. It's wonderful. But like I was saying, with the stepping into the roles and stuff, yeah, you get some actors who can do it well. Like, as much as people don't like this film, I thought Harrison Ford was still great as Indiana Jones. He felt like Indiana Jones.
Yes, he did. He was the best part of it. But I thought it was appropriate and in hindsight, I'm glad he said yes to do it. I felt it was appropriate that Leonard Nimoy's final role in his life and career was Spock.
Yep.
I thought that was so appropriate.
It was. It was appropriate, where I feel he should be remembered for more than just being Spock.
True.
Because I always like when he died on the papers over here, every single paper ran with the Spock thing, and like kept doing the live long and prosper and stuff like that. It's like stop doing the Spock quotes. We get it, but he was more than just Spock. That was an important part of his work. But the man himself was more than just Spock, and I feel it's kind of bad that, not you, but the media only focused on the Spock aspect.
That's interesting, because I found out at work, I actually, the article that I was reading, actually headlining wasn't with Spock. But I noticed that every other headline I read after that was the had Spock in the title, but the first one I read did not.
Yeah, I've seen one that didn't have it. It says actor Leonard Nimoy passes on, and it explained the news, and that was very respectful. But a lot of other newspapers and TV news, pardon me, tried to get the buzz, the quote, the soundbite by inserting the Leonard Nimoy one on there.
I thought it was a little insensitive when I saw like a bunch of papers that says Spock died today, and I'm like, first of all, like that's a character, and he can't really die being a character. The guy who played him for the majority of his life, yes, that's true, but like Spock did not. Like that, just like you're just trying to get a rise out of people, or just try to get people's attention. And it's like stupid.
It'd be like if I was to end this review by saying, "I'm from the simple man. The proof was we are not alone in the universe. I'm Leonard Nimoy. Good night." Doesn't work. It kind of underdoes what you've just done, in my opinion. And in case you're wondering, that was a quote from The Simpsons, from the Mulder episode. I love the Mulder and Scully episode where he did the bit of narration at the end of complete Homer's story. That was wonderful. Which that's great that he went back to The Simpsons. I loved him in The Simpsons with Monorail. The Monorail episode was awesome.
Yeah. I think one of the funniest things he's ever done was the Shatner roast on Comedy Central. Because honestly, who else could have gotten away with, aside from The Rock, who else could have gotten away with phoning it in via satellite? Like, if anyone else had tried to do that to Shatner, it wouldn't have flown, but because it was Nimoy, it was hilarious. Because Nimoy doesn't do that shit, and the fact that he did that made it funny. And he was like, I love he was like sending it up too. He was playing a jerkish version of himself because he was all like, yeah, I'm Leonard fucking Nimoy. I don't have to be there. Fuck off, Shatner. But I just love that he played with it. I thought that was hilarious because they are such good friends, or were such good friends.
Yeah, it's like on Futurama when they did the kidnapping of the Star Trek cast. I loved how he was playing up the fact he was like, yeah, we didn't like him. He has such a big ego. And then Kirk addresses it like, yeah, it's like when Spock got such a great performance out of me when he directed, and he mentioned the Star Trek film. He goes, because he has such a huge amount of respect for me. And I managed to get a great performance out of me when I directed this because I have a great amount of respect for me. And I'm like, that's brilliant. And I just, like I said, Kirk and Spock doing banter in anything, even Futurama, is just wonderful. And I still love Leonard Nimoy voicing Spock in the animated series. I think he voiced him in the animated series. Because I think they got nearly all the actors back for that, which I loved the animated series. But Jim would be able to clarify.
He voiced two versions of Spock. He voiced Mr. Spock and Spock the Second.
Nice. Which means, yeah, he was in the animated series. Which I loved the animated series of Star Trek, and he did a great job with that. Which that was another skill which you will come to appreciate more when we go to review the animated series later on this year. But the fact he takes Spock and he does it in a way that still works for a cartoon.
Yeah.
That's taking a character that you portray and portraying it just slightly differently so it works for another medium. Not many people can do that slight differentiation. They either go too overboard or too underboard.
Yeah. Absolutely. But, Stacy, what was your first exposure to Leonard Nimoy? since you haven't
My
mentioned
first
that.
exposure to Leonard Nimoy was my dad is probably one of the biggest Trekkies I know. Like if you like when I before I started my nerd cave, my dad had a Trekkie cave, and from then on I expanded and turned into the nerd cave because I got more like nerdy shit than him. But like the left side nerd cave, right side Trekkie, you know. So this is my parents' house, before I moved out. So like yeah, I used to watch like all this stuff with him, and now like if you go there, you're gonna be like it's this whole like because Leonard Nimoy Spock, who was his favorite, favorite character. So I got him like this like, little talking bobblehead. Got him some like the Star Trek lamp. I got him like all this cool stuff. I got him some autograph stuff of like Leonard Nimoy on eBay, and I got basically like his performance and stuff made me like really closer to my dad, and we watched this stuff. So it was like created a whole like bonding thing we had.
So does that mean that this Trekkie cave is now a Leonard Nimoy shrine?
It's not a shrine, like I said. It's mostly just sci-fi now because it has like Stargate and like all these like 1950s like sci-fi movies and like all shit like that. Basically, it's just completely sci-fi on one side and then Nerd Cave on the left side.
I will make the case, Pew. Your father is a Trekkie or a Trekker, i.e. It's not a nerd cave, it's a nerd holodeck. Thank you.
Ha!
He has a point.
I also admit he does have he actually does have a Star Trek suit. Because he always wanted the blue one because Spock's his favorite. So yeah.
Makes sense. That's great, and I'm sure Leonard Nimoy would have loved to hear that story from you because that's the kind of stories that these actors and actresses like to hear, and it's why a lot of them do what they do.
He's probably started my first love into sci-fi and then fantasy and stuff.
Yeah, it's like I've said in the past. I watched the original Star Trek series with my dad as well before he passed on and stuff. And one of the best part for me with that was, like I mentioned, the animated series. Was the animated series, and because I was a little older, I got into next gen more. The movie Generations mixed with the animated series was just that great buffer of. It's something where I can talk to him about that, and he could talk to me about his one, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, look, they're meeting," with the animated series. Oh my god, I love Spock. Oh my god, I love this. I love this. I love this. And it's like that's cool. And you know what I mean? It's like it's something just with the cartoon alone, in my opinion, as well as the original stuff. But based on the cartoon alone, because of the age I was when that was on TV and stuff, you had two different generations who could appreciate Spock playing, Leonard Nimoy playing Spock in two very different ways at the same time. Still get a sense of what that person was, and that's great. That's a huge skill.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, my dad's a Trekker too. Probably not as big as yours, Stacy, but he grew up watching Star Trek when he could. When he wasn't like going to school.
It was one thing considering that like my parents had my dad owned his own business, so he worked like 80 hours a week, and my mom had 2 part-time jobs, so they really didn't, like, my mom never watched TV. Like, if she ever talked about a commercial, it probably would have been on 10 years going before she mentioned it, so they would never, like, mention, like, anything. But if we could have, like, one thing that we bonded together that actually made them want to, like, sit down and, watch something together, it was, like, really cool. So it allowed them to actually spend the quality time together.
That's awesome. Yeah, my dad really didn't start watching Star Trek until, like, really watching it until after I was born, and he watched it in syndication when he actually had time, because he was on the school, so he was just working and hanging out with me, basically. So he actually had time to watch it, and he introduced me to it. And then his cousin is a huge original series Trekker. And so, I bonded with him over that. We would talk about that all the time, and, with my dad, too. And so, I was introduced to the movies through him, and for a while back then, what we would do is we had this tradition because back then Trek movies were coming out every year. So for a few of the movies, we started up this tradition of Christmas time, because that's when the Trek movies would come out. We would go and watch the latest Trek movie in the theaters as a family.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was kind of awesome. And then my dad's cousin got married and moved to Canada, so we kind of can't do that anymore.
We used to make like model rockets that actually shoot up in the air and then like have little parachutes that come down. And my dad would always name them like a ship from like Star Trek. We had the Enterprise, and then he had like the Klingon ship, and then from Next Generation we have like Borg ships, and like it was just it was so much fun.
Will we be seeing Papa Shadow appear in the Christmas or the December episode of Shadow's Mole when we're doing the Year of Trek? Since that's the latest one and you haven't seen it yet.
Ha. Funny. I don't think he's seen any of the Abrams tracks, to be honest.
You will make him watch it.
Oh, he hasn't? Are you kidding me? My dad went to see that like the first freaking day.
My parents don't go to see a lot of movies.
I tried to convince him to put on his Star Trek suit, but he didn't. So instead, I got a smaller one in my size for him since he wasn't going to wear his.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. The only movie my mother has seen in the last, 20 years, and it's one she dragged me to, was Mamma Mia. That should tell you something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
She dragged him, and I'm using air quotes, dragged him.
Yes, dragged.
I promised him they could watch a cooking show afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, the other choice is the problem. What Marcus means is she took him to the show in drag.
No, what Marcus meant was he dragged her. That's what I'm thinking. You'll like it. It's got Mama in the title. No, I'm kidding. But how about you, Jim? Do you have any stories of you and your family bonding with Trek?
Nope.
No? Just like that?
I'm sorry, I don't really have much because my mother watches soap operas and my father watches old war movies and things on the History Channel.
Maybe if you watch the Star Trek in Spanish, you could get her to do it. Tell her it's a Spanish soap opera.
Well, I'll assume you and your father bonded more over Star Wars then. Because that was clearly a historical thing. I mean, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Thank you.
Actually, my dad and I did go see episode 1 in the theater together.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, well.
And you didn't call social services for child abuse?
Funny. I'll admit, Jar Jar aside, I actually like episode 1 mostly because it had an awesome PlayStation game that went with it.
I will admit, episode 1 isn't overly as terrible as people make out. It's not the worst thing ever. I mean, I think episode 6 is worse. And I'm sorry, Darth Maul and some of the other cool stuff. And I'm sorry, Qui-Gon. Aha! Qui-Gon was awesome, but yeah. But that's cool if you didn't have the experience with that. Not everyone does.
You know, like I said, I was never thinking I knew Star Trek was a thing, but I was never really that into Star Trek as a thing. Like I said, my induction into Trekdom was sitting around with nothing to watch and something across TNN, and they just next gen episode just randomly here they all are just all the time, and so I would just randomly start and I really wasn't that into it at first. I always remember the first next gen episode I saw was the one entitled Disaster, I think it's called, the one where the ship hits some technobabble in space and all the power goes out and they're trapped in different parts of the ship, and I watched that and I'm like, okay, this is actually kind of cool. That one and the one where they all de-evolve for no good reason because they didn't have a better plot. And after that, that's when I started watching Trek and really getting into it, and I watched all the Next Gen episodes over the course of time on that, and then went back and watched DS9 more recently after the fact. But I said up until we started watching them and everything, I was never really that into the original series. The Trek thing has always been kind of my own thing. I've never really, had a lot of that with, anybody else.
Yeah, which is fair enough. It's like the original Star Trek series. Not everyone liked it and stuff, and a lot of people did like from Next Gen on. It's fair enough. Although you have been appreciating it while we've been doing these reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if you voiced him in it. I'm sure you've seen stuff to do with Spock when you were playing with Marcus and Aeon and stuff for Star Trek Online.
He's the narrator.
Yeah, he is. When you play as a Federation, because when you play in the game, you have and they've recently updated this to more accurately portray it. But when you start off in the game, each time you go to a new planet or a new sector, you get a little voiceover with information about it. It kind of narrates you to help you integrate you to the parts of the world as you're going through the earlier portion of the story mode. And if you're the Federation character, the voice is Spock. The explanation being that he sent back this basic data recording about the universe that they recovered from his ship before it went through time to cause the Abramsverse. So you're basically hearing that. Whereas if you're on the Romulan side, you hear Denise Crosby as Sela, of course, Romulan Praetor, and if you're on the Klingon side, you hear it from Michael Dorn's Worf.
I believe he actually voices Spock in these Spock missions as well, like when you go back.
He does, yeah, and a few times when you encounter Spock, he does voice him. Yeah, Leonard Nimoy was the first of the voice actors from any of the shows to appear in STO. He was the first actor they had, and then they got Denise Crosby and expanded it from there. But he was the first voice actor from the show they had involved with the game.
So I assume, basically, I assume they added that later because I played the game and I don't remember him being a narrator. And I think when I played the game, it was right around the time or right before Abrams' track.
No, he's been there since the beta.
Oh, because I didn't hear him.
Yeah, he's always been there as the narrator.
Which I never heard it, which is weird.
Yeah, whenever you go when you go to an assistant, and when you assist, we're gonna come up and you want to come up the Vulcan system. Home to peoples and planets. He kind of did his literal his I'm Leonard Nimoy narrator thing.
Yeah, which is like I said, it's fair enough. I just hadn't noticed. I might not just noticed it, or it might have been because that game was so horribly designed that it kept breaking on like 5 different machines I've used now, and one of them is an Alienware high-end PC.
Top of the gaming PC. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I've used that on a friend and it still breaks, so I'm guessing maybe the sound, because I did have sound issues with it as well as it just
maybe, yeah.
The fuck out.
Yeah, it's still they've done a little bit better. They've still got some problems with some loading issues, some things going into it, but they have fixed a lot of it. Like, one thing they're going to be launching soon is they actually redesigned space so that the systems are at least as close to the right place as they can possibly be, and that the proportions are right. So when you come up to a system, the sun of the system isn't smaller than your ship.
Yeah, which is going to be weird. I have to wonder now that Leonard Nimoy's passed away, what are they going to do about the narrations for all that? Because all that's going to have to change now because they're moving planets around and shit. Like, Leonard Nimoy's narrations won't 100% match up to the sectors you're flying into because they're rearranging everything now, so that's kind of weird.
Yeah, that will be interesting. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work out. They'll have to, if all else fails, they might have to get another actor to come in and do voiceover for that, and have it be a mix of maybe Spock and somebody else for what still matches up from Nimoy's, and then if they can get Shatner or somebody to come in and do the other half of it.
Shatner would be awesome.
They could get Shatner, or to mix in, if they could get something like, for example, if they could get Brent Spiner to come in and do Data's voice, or get Picard or somebody, that would also work.
Oh, that would be so awesome.
I was going to suggest Data, but I will also say, redesigning space, isn't that going against everything Star Trek is, because you're not supposed to play God?
True.
Try telling that to Q.
Yeah, unfortunately, the reason they stated it is because when they built the game, and they realized that a lot of players complained that the systems were not where they were supposed to be. It didn't match canon, so they took all kinds of time and they looked at the book called Star Trek Star Charts that existed, and they did all this synthesized research to figure out the most canon version of space they possibly could, and put all the systems to the best of their ability where they were supposed to be, except ones that were absolutely essential to be in a place for a mission, or ones that were outside the gameplay border. They moved them just slightly in the border so they can exist.
That seems a little weird, because to me personally, it seems like they designed it as a game, first of all, when I was playing it and stuff, and I didn't have a problem with where things was located as a game and stuff. With this not being canon, it seems really weird to change it from being best for a game to what's best for canon if it's not canon.
Well, like I said, anything that had to be maintained for the gameplay over the canon, they did. For example, certain planets that were in places that had to be maintained for gameplay, they left those planets there. But given that so many people were complaining to them that this didn't match how space is supposed to look in the Star Trek universe, they felt that it was important to remedy that, and since they wanted to redo space anyway to fix some of the dimensions and some of the other problems, they decided they might as well do it all in one shot, so they rearranged they moved all the systems to the right place. They added some sectors that didn't exist, like Beta, Zen, and Trill. Some of the well-known planets that you hear about but don't really see much, they added them to where they were supposed to be the right sectors, and things like that to really round space out a little bit, to put things where they're supposed to be and make you feel like you're really in Star Trek's version of space rather than just in a game version of space. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, which I understand. I just make the case if I feel a game should prioritize a game decisions as best as possible. Like if we're playing, say, 2K16 when it comes out, I wouldn't like it if they make it so you can only hit people on the back with a chair. instead of in the head, or you can't make them bleed in matches, or you can't do some really stupid stuff. Yes, I want it realistic in terms of selling and stuff like that, but some other gameplay stuff, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, it shouldn't be 100% accurate, but it shouldn't also be 100% not. It should be sort of in the middle, and this sounds like they've prioritized the other aspect of realistic as possible.
No, because like I said, they were trying to get it close to them because this is what everyone was complaining about. This is what the players wanted. The players are saying to us, these planets aren't in the right space. This is driving us nuts. Please fix this. And they did. That's why they did it in the first place, because so many people were complaining to them about space not matching what space was supposed to look like in the shows and shit. So that's why they fixed it. Then, listen, any situation in which gameplay was important over these canonicity of the star charts, they stuck with the gameplay and making sure that the planets were there for the property of the gameplay. But for the experience of the player, so that they could really feel like they were command of a starship in Star Trek space, they wanted it to feel that way, that that the relevant planets and things that were there and the systems were there and that things were where they should be, and so you could actually experience, like, if you were legitimately going from Earth to Romulus, you'd be going through the right amount of to the right place and exactly where it is, and really be immersed in the Star Trek universe. Yes, it's more important for gameplay aspects, but if you can work the canon in and it's not going to drastically affect the gameplay, then why would you not do that?
Like I said, I don't know. The way it was laid out when I was playing it, like I said, I liked how it was laid out. It felt comfortable as a game. So changing that seems like it's going to be not as good for a game, but that's cool. It
seems it's going to be really comfortable because space is going to feel more realistic and everything, and they've adjusted the transwarps and things so you can still get to places in a timely manner. And the big reason they're doing this is because they're taking down all the walls. You know how you used to go, for each sector you had to go through a load screen in a wall? Now that's not the case. Now it's only when you go from quadrant to quadrant. So there's only like 3 loading screens in all in space.
No, it's like I said, that seems fair enough. It's a difference of opinion. It just doesn't sound good to me, but that's cool. It's a difference of opinion.
Yeah, it's awesome to me. Fair enough. Back to Leonard Nimoy. I don't know how they're going to adjust with the voiceover. Like I said, easiest would be to get another well-known actor to provide Federation voiceover in conjunction with Leonard Nimoy's voiceovers.
New Spock.
What's that?
New Spock.
They could get Kindo to do it. That could be interesting. Or, since they already have him on board anyway, I could easily see them they have Tim Russ on board as Tuvok, the other well-known Vulcan of the franchise. I can easily see them using him as well.
Or they could play up to the fans. They could get Harry Kim to be the voice.
They could do that, but that wouldn't make any sense.
Why not?
He's a freaking ensign. Who the hell will hire him to do freaking all these? Who the hell would have him record all the information about space? He's a fucking ensign.
I thought at this point he's like an admiral.
I would make the case, how is he not playing up to the fans to get new Spock or Data? They are fans. I love Data and new Spock.
Yeah, I would say. I'm
just saying they have Garrett Wang already doing voices for them anyway, and Harry Kim is a fan favorite. If they want to save money, they could just ask him to do it because they've already hired him as a voice actor.
Yeah, they could try. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see where they go. I'm sure they'll come up with something appropriate. Yeah. Just like one of the things that they did do is, based on the places where the players were gathering in tribute to Leonard Nimoy, they've actually put memorials to him into the game. One of them is at the fountain when you go to Vulcan. In the fountain, there's a statue of him standing in his robe giving the Vulcan salute, and along the bottom of the base it says, "Live long and prosper." And then they put another one on Romulus to honor, Spock's dedication to the reunification of the Vulcan and Romulan people. And that one says, "The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few." And it's the same statue. And in each of those locations, you can also read a little plaque that they put up, which has not just Leonard Nimoy, but the names of the other people from the franchise who have passed away. It's got James Doohan and Gene Roddenberry, Majel Barrett, and I can never remember his damn name. Bones.
DeForest Kelly.
Yeah.
Thank you, DeForest Kelly. And you can read a little there. It has their dates of birth and passing. A little quote from them. So on and so forth. So you can a little tribute to all the passings, not just Leonard Nimoy, but having those. But because that affected so much, they put those tributes in the game where you can go see those statues, which is kind of cool, and I like that they did that and honored him within the game. And I can feel that they understand how much this meant to the players, and if they have to replace him for some of the voiceover throughout the story mode, I know they will get somebody, somebody that the fans will approve of that matches Leonard Nimoy's stature to do it. I would say in terms of outright having a voice you would want to hear narrating through space, I would say Picard. But if they can't get Picard, either Brent Spiner as Data would be ideal because he and Spock served a similar role in their respective series. I could also
I would say the two people you would want to go after first and foremost would either be Patrick Stewart or Shatner. I would want Shatner's voice in there before anybody else.
Shatner would work as well. I could agree with that, but I also think that especially for the Federation, I think it would be really cool if you could reflect more of the entirety of the franchise than just original Star Trek by having somebody from Next Gen or one of the later series in there as well. Because you want to talk about hearing awesome voices through space. How about hearing Avery Brooks narrate your way through space? How about that?
Yeah. Which I will say that was cool. It's a shame you guys weren't able to take part in those tributes to him and the game and stuff.
Yeah.
Personally, out of them, I would go with Data, just because while Picard has a more commanding voice, Data's more of the character that matches Spock's in a way that it would make sense that he would do these recordings and stuff. So I'd be like, okay, that'd be cool.
Yeah, they could tie that in.
But yeah, like I said, Leonard Nimoy himself, like I said, it's a shame that he's passed on. I'm hoping he's filmed stuff for the new film, but he may not have. I don't know. Because if he's not filmed stuff for the new film, then technically wouldn't the last stuff he was in be those new car commercials you mentioned?
It might have been. His last, big acting job, like film, TV, and stuff, was Abrams' Trek. It was Into Darkness.
Yeah, that was the last big thing he's labeled for on his IMDb and on the Wikipedia pages. So yeah, he might have done like a commercial or an appearance here and there, but the last major role that he's credited for is the Star Trek Into Darkness film.
I know. I was just saying. I was hoping he did. I was hoping his parts were recorded for the new film, because that'd be great to finally see his last big role.
That would be good if he'd already. Yeah, that would be great. I know that. I don't know how they were planning to address that, because I know they've also been trying to get William Shatner to come in to be old Kirk for that as well. So it could be interesting if they had they had the last bit of stuff from old Spock, and then when old Kirk shows up, only to find his friend old Spock has passed away or has disappeared or whatever's going on that they write it out with. That could be an interesting way to kind of turn it over, to have that that previous character in there, but have it to write out Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, which could be interesting itself. Which, yeah, like I said, he seemed like a great man.
He did seem like great. I feel bad I never got to meet him.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, I think we've covered the topic here.
We have.
Does anybody have any last words they want to say about Leonard Nimoy?
No, I think we covered it. Like I said, he seems like a great guy.
Yeah, wish I could have met him. I hope you're at peace now, Leonard.
Indeed. Well, thank all four of you for joining me and sharing your stories about Trek and how Leonard Nimoy and Spock impacted you. I think it's great to hear those kind of stories. And he will always be fondly remembered by not just Trekkies, but everybody that
Trekkers.
Trekkies.
Trekkies is insulting.
And I think we're all gonna remember him fondly for the roles he was in, and it is great that we have the roles to remember him in. We can go back and watch that and still feel that in both his serious roles as Spock and other roles, the emotion and the warmth that he was able to exude, and the power, the powerful presence he put behind his characters, and just how he made basically just how he made everybody feel like they could be a part of that Star Trek world and whatnot. That's about all I've got. My name is Phoenix, and Leonard Nimoy, if some way or how, wherever you are, you can hear this,
I see that thing with Futurama with the rotating space cemetery.
Yeah.
I just thought that was appropriate.
There you go. Leonard Nimoy, you were and always shall be our friend. Live long and prosper wherever you are.